في أكبر الكتب.
Okay, this is it. As I had promised, for those who've been following my channel, I am doing a double feature for this particular review here. So, by the way, also, hi everyone, Integrating Real Perspective, my YouTube film review corner, where I also review music as well. So, I decided to do a review of these two particular movies, which I know one of which you're pretty well familiar with, at least for those who follow more of like the indie art house horror scene. And that movie is called As Above, So Below from 2014. That's the found footage movie that takes place in Paris underneath the catacombs and features Perdita Weeks and Ben Feldstein, who I'm sure you remember him from the first Cloverfield movie. And he seems to be a regular in a lot of those found footage movies. So I wanted to review that, and I also wanted to review an Argentinian movie from 2008, which I know nobody on here, at least here in the United States, knows about, and it's called Don't Look Down. Now, if you look up this movie on IMDb, you're going to find quite a few entries. No, this is not the same as that Don't Look Up movie that came out during the pandemic with Jennifer Lawrence, that environmental film. I've never seen that one. This is a this is an Argentinian movie that I would say is the equivalent of watching a tantric manual on film. And the reason why I am reviewing these two films together is to look at them through the framework of Dante's Divine Comedy, because both of these movies actually borrow and reference from both Inferno and Paradiso, or Paradise, which are the first and the third chapters from the first and the third works from Dante's magnum opus. And then there's also Purgatory. That's the middle chapter, the middle segment of those works. Um, Now, at the center of both of these films is a symbiosis between how men and women relate in a romantic and spiritual context. In As Above, So Below, you have Scarlett, that's Perdita Weeks, and George, Ben Feldstein. In Don't Look Down, there is Elvira and Eloy. And I only remember the actress who played Elvira. It's Antonia Costa or Antonella Costa. I don't remember the actor that played Eloy. But I'll fish out the IMDb link for that film so that you can go and look at it yourself. Look at the cast. Now, both relationships in these movies consist of a strong woman who is a spiritual guide. That's the way I see it, except that one comes from a place of darkness, that's Scarlet, and the other comes from a place of light, that's Elvira. Now, one leads her man into danger and undergoes a transformative experience, which is what happens with Scarlett and George, in which by the journey's end, there is a purging of one's, um, past regrets and traumas. What Scarlett refers to as rectifying oneself, um in the context of the Nicholas Flamel origins of alchemy story thread that follows throughout As Above, So Below. On the other hand, with Don't Look Down, you have the male character Eloy, who's going through a process of grief, having lost his dad, um, having developed a chronic sleepwalking habit, and he ends up falling through the window of Elvira's home, and as a result, starts to develop an unlikely relationship with Elvira, in which she becomes, this tantric healer to help him harness, his creativity through learning different sex acts, according to this Taoist book that the film references. And so so that's the premise for which this review is going to be based on. I'm going to be making some um uh, some um minor side notes here to another film called The Sessions from 2012. Some of you are maybe familiar with that. Helen Hunt is in that film. She plays the sex surrogate, and it's based on a true story, actually. John Hawkes plays the poet who suffers from polio in that film. And the reason I'm going to be bringing up that film is because I think there's going to be a lot to discuss with As Above, So Below. I feel like Don't Look Down, because it is a lesser known film, it's going to require at least one other more mainstream American film that's along the same lines as that, but is still going to be its own review at some point down the road. It is a relevant film regardless. I have only seen it once, and I've seen Don't Look Down at least 6 times. So that film is going to be more important throughout this review. Now, when I was watching As Above, So Below, I picked out some rather intriguing dark side of the New Age movement tidbits and some occult facts that upturn any popular opinions or established facts that you may have come to accept, from a mainstream view, depending upon how in the know you are. Like, there is a scene in the movie that happens after Scarlett and George pour ammonia on the back of that church tablet to reveal the hieroglyphs on the back, which correlate to Scarlett's discovery at the beginning of the film, where she comes across the rose key hidden in one of the tombs in, like, Saudi Arabia, I think one of those Middle Eastern countries, Pakistan. And one of the things that it talks about on the back of that tablet is brightest light in darkest day. Now, George points out that this is a metaphor for the distance between earth and heaven and hell, which Scarlett further points out is 741 feet, or 741 miles. But 741 is the number of the devil. Yeah, not 666. So dispel that notion altogether. It is 741. And that it's the number that measures that distance between heaven, earth, and hell. The devil that she's referring to is in fact Lucifer. And in my astrological studies on Lucifer's association with the morning star and Venus, Earth is the highest circle of hell. That's how Lucifer is able to walk about through this material 3D world and cause confusion and chaos, and also the creativity to wield the light that is distinctive of his role as the light bringer. Fascinating, huh? Yeah, seeing as how Lightbringer is what a lot of those Reiki masters and chakra workers in the New Age community like to call themselves. Oh, I'm a light worker. Yeah, I should shove this movie in their face to point out what scam artists they are. But the point that I'm, trying to make here is that like, there are examples of the fact that Earth is the highest circle of hell. Take that scene when Scarlett and Benji first go to, oh yeah, Scarlett, Benji, and George go to the nightclub. And there's that creepy zombie girl in the white dress and the knee-high boots who walks past and gives Benji that really creepy stare. Yeah, yeah. And constantly keeps her eyes on him the whole time. That's a very telling sign right there. Really, the whole movie is a visual allegory for all the demons that we still carry that follow us around like ghosts, and how the earth allows these dark shadows to lurk and thrive. And I mean, these aren't things to, um, you know, to shame. They are just things to recognize, and that the light is what is needed to transform these leaden grudges into gold. Ha ha ha, there's a Tool reference right there for those who know the band Tool. And the reflection of the self within us all is the philosopher's stone, as is indicative of the revelation, the epiphany that Scarlett makes when she puts the physical stone back and sees herself in the mirror. Um, after thinking that the philosopher's stone was a physical thing, but it's not merely physical. It's spirit reflected through matter. I mean, the human body is a vessel that is capable of carrying all the elements within that basically make the reality that we see and experience as we desire. So as, just as above, so below, so as within, so as without. So as I see the world as it is, as a reflection of the likeness within me. And the undying love that Scarlett has for George to wield the power to heal his own wound through touching him after she does put back the stone. She has the power to heal him with just her touch, just laying her hands on him. That's proof that their relationship is the truth that sees through all the doom and gloom of the world, the truth that makes desire alive with animated fire to bring the two lovers together. When Scarlett says that she looked for the philosopher's stone, she wasn't looking for money, but she was searching for the truth. And I believed her. I believe her. Now, circling back to the movie Don't Look Down, the tantric sex sessions between Elvira and Eloy are about finding truth through the prolonging of pleasure and orgasm. And then there's that clairvoyant astral projection ability that Eloy learns during his lessons, which occur at the moment in which he thrusts a certain number of times while doing like missionary position or whatever the Taoist equivalent is to that, inside of Elvira's vagina. At one point, it was 70 thrusts before Eloy astral travel to an old street in Seville. Convenient that the number 69 was almost like a numerological doorway to this mental phenomena that after the 69 thrust was just like, you know, Eloy, internally was thinking, I'm coming, but the coming was actually, him rising to another plane of consciousness altogether. That's not really the sort of thing that you see in um Helen Hunt and John Hawkes's work in the movie The Sessions, because that's more about um, utilizing Taoist sort of practices, but more through the lens of somatic body work, of like the Peter Levine school. For those of you who have read the book Waking the Tiger, just developing awareness of sensation as a way of achieving the same state, as opposed to like, breath work and reading each other's aura and stuff like that. I mean, it still has roughly the same effect, but it's got a different philosophy, a different set of principles that guide it. Anyways, though, both Scarlett and Elvira possess both like the dark and the light archetypes as witch figures in their perspective and distinctive roles. Now, I want to make a loose reference to Maurice Blanchot, the French writer, philosopher, and literary theorist, because his book, The Writing of the Disaster, sort of shines a light on the endless trials of serving the other, and how it also plays on why Dante's Inferno has been the most popular of the three books in Dante's Divine Comedy. There is this nameless and lawless chaos that comes with opening yourself up to another. And in a love relationship, there can be unforeseen disasters that can happen that challenge the relationship, thus bringing it on the edge of a breakup or a divorce. When we're introduced to Scarlett and George together, shortly after the introduction with just Scarlett, who is talking to the camera about her background and her search for the Philosopher's Stone, while Benji is asking her questions out of frame. He's the cameraman for this movie. Um, George is none too happy to see Scarlett. He warns Benji to stay away from this one because the last time he went on one of her archaeological quests, one of her faux Robert Langdon type of quests, to find something related to the Philosopher's Stone, he wound up in a Turkish prison. A Turkish prison. A Turkish prison. Oh my gosh. Scarlett is a very, very, very passionate woman, as you can tell, who seems to brush off fear pretty easily. Although there are moments of vulnerability where, whenever her dad is brought up in conversation, she freezes up like a deer in the headlights, especially when the subject of his mental health is brought up to explain why he went mad on his quest to find the same stone. And she gets teary when she first encounters what looks like an apparition of him in the caves of Iran on that mission that she was on right at the very beginning of the film before the title credits roll in, where she's looking for the rose stone. George lost his kid brother to a drowning accident when they were both young, so he's been haunted by that ever since, and hence why when he's dragged into the caves in Paris, he's very reluctant about being there, and for good reason too. The nine circles of hell in As Above, So Below are brought up only with the slightest and thinnest appropriation of the source material. Greed is obviously illustrated here with the level in which the explorers discover the dead Templar's knight and the chambers filled with gold and other treasures and the torches that have been lit for eternity. And then, when they get to the bottommost level where they meet who is supposed to be Satan, who's just really this ghoul in a very heavy, dark robe sitting on a chair, just facing the wall. There's probably a little bit of Plato's cave reference right there in that particular scene at the bottommost level of hell. It's the essence of Inferno, though, that's really what's preserved here. The sense of having to confront the psychic demons and the wounds that continue to haunt the characters' everyday lives. In particular, though, Scarlett and George. I'm not going to go into the characters of Zed, Suxi, or any of the other characters here, Benji as well, because they really aren't given much background, and so there's really nothing to say about them that's going to add to the conversation. I mean, you can read about the interpretations of what haunted the other characters and why they died in their specific ways on the Reddit forums. But anyhow, escape is a key theme here, and escape through rectification of each other's souls to heal from the traumas and grief of the past, which is how George and Scarlett end up at the bottom, where they discover that manhole, which they then push out, only to end up on the streets of Paris again, and the Louvre is right behind them, the art museum. Hey, I wonder if Tom Hanks is hanging out there. When the camera is shown upside down, but then is flipped right side up to show the literal representation of the Hermetic axiom as above, so below. This seems to provide a nice segue into the Paradiso reference in Don't Look Down when Eloy looks at the tattoo above Elvira's derriere, which has the line, "A new life is beginning," which is what Dante says to Beatrice when he meets her for the first time. And if you see how these two films are connected by the order of these symbols and dialogue references from Dante's work, it makes sense that there is a spiritual narrative regarding the escape from Inferno to rising up through the nine celestial fears of Paradiso through some heavenly ideal of love. In the case of Elvira and Eloy's, work together, his apprenticeship to Elvira is the equivalent of probably some unwritten chapter in Paradiso, where these two are recreating that paradise lost, that return to Eden, where sex is approached without shame or fear, and that the energy that's exchanged between these two mellows out every aspect of their lives. The scene I was referring to with the tattoo that Eloy notices above Elvira's derriere is during a scene where he's given this um, potion of sorts that has a combination of different oils and fragrances like nectar and mandarin orange and peach blossom, um probably some jasmine and juniper in there as well. And what he's instructed to do is to massage her with this oil as kind of a way to teach him, like, how to create a sensual, erotic blueprint for understanding the pleasures of a woman's body. I mean, that's about as close to paradise, close to a Garden of Eden like setting as you can get, is just, a man and a woman not being afraid of each other's sexual desire for one another, but just, letting that energy flow back and forth reciprocally, so as just just be, to just experience the presence of one another, just two opposites coming together as one. And I think, that's supposed to be the positive outcome, when you think about Maurice Blanchard's The Writing of the Disaster, is that it doesn't have to be a disaster as long as you know, like, how to look after each other, and how to honor one another in the sacredness of each other's opposites, and the interplay between those opposites, which is, definitely why sex provides a a fast outlet to that divine connection with, whatever you want to call it, God, or higher source, or cosmic consciousness, or whatever. But it's something that religion fails to do. And I'm talking about like exoteric religion fails to do. What's seen in Don't Look Down is definitely, the essence of what so much mainstream religion tries to hide away. So, anyways, I know that was a little bit of an aside there, but the point I was trying to get at was that, the segue between these two films is pretty obvious. That escape, from Inferno, and that rise up the nine celestial spheres to paradise. It's just so obvious. When I watched the interview with director Eliseo Sibilia on the DVD that I own, he talks about a millennial book called The Tao of Sex and Love. This book became the inspiration for the film. And he talks about how using this book as material for the film was like doing an adaptation of the phone book, which is why he wanted to bring emotion into the film and not merely make it into a sex manual documentary, which it definitely was not, that's for sure. Despite the advertising on it where it says where sexual fantasies come true, it's not what you think it is. It is not some very bland and one-dimensional pornography video. And it is definitely not a sex manual documentary for sure. Um, but anyways, he also talks about the Andre Breton quote used at the beginning of the film, which goes, "Wherever and whenever society deems life is worthless, we must see through the eyes of Eros. In the fullness of time, it is up to Eros to restore the balance between life and death that has been tipped in death's favor." Yeah, I mean, look at the world right now as it is. More people need to see this film. I mean, my gosh, there needs to be a church that shows this film badly. Wonder why there isn't a Unitarian church out there that would show this type of film. And then there is the Rumi quote displayed before the end credits. "There is a sea not far from us. It is invisible, but it is hidden. It is forbidden to speak of it. Yet it is a sin and a sign of ingratitude not to." And the quote goes on to say, "To my sons and daughter," which I believe is implying Eliseo, the director, because he also said in the interview that he dedicated Don't Look Down to his children, and all children for that matter, who should watch this film at least around the age of 13 or 14. These two quotes are important for generating the framework of the film. Don't Look Down's portrayal of sex is one showing a return to that childhood innocence, and even the director admits that he wishes he had learned all this stuff about sex when he was 13. Gee, wouldn't it be nice if other people felt that way? And keeping Eros alive is vital to keeping death at bay, which is vital, especially given the emphasis on the woman as teacher in this film, which Eliseo states that he wanted to make this film to tip its hat in favor of female roles. He talks about the director of photography being a woman. He specifically wanted it to be a woman so as to create a greater level of comfort for the two stars um, that play Elvira and Eloy to feel more comfortable and at ease when staging the sex scenes. Um, but he also wanted to show, too, how much more mature women are than men. Of course, he needs to spend just 1 hour in the United States to, because that would actually challenge his view. But for the sake of optimism, I will say, of course, that he does have a good point when he says that women are more mature than men, not just from experience, but as he states rather pointedly but vaguely, for mysterious reasons. And it's that celebration of the mystery of woman that makes Elvira a powerful teacher for Eloy, because he has to learn not to get attached to her, but to take the arcane lessons learned from her so that he can practice on other women in the hopes of becoming potential partners. Which is to say that he is meant to learn not to possess a woman. Something of a contradiction that this film presents because it means denying what is otherwise fundamental to a man's nature, which is to be dominant, to, I mean, own a woman, not to the point of, degrading or making her feel imprisoned, but um, there's obviously many different historical, psychological, and biological explanations for why that is. But it is still a very fundamental thing that, you can't take out of a man. But thus, this film, it does not present a very easy message to digest. Which is funny though, because although I have never watched his films, Gaspar Noé would scoff at this movie. At least I think so. He is an Argentine filmmaker like Subilia, and he even made a movie called Love in 2015, which actually is the only movie that of his that I tried to watch but never finished. But in that movie, there is a male character named Murphy who is actually pretty selfish and possessive, especially when he gets into a polyamorous relationship. At least that's how I remember it, but I'd have to try and finish watching that film sometime. The mercurial nature of behavior to otherwise throw off any set bias towards a single culture's social consciousness. Because just like anywhere else, Argentina can have its seedy side as well. Any attempts to sum up a culture's belief and value system are feeble at best. I did enjoy the New Age aspects of Don't Look Down, like the scene where Eloy teaches Elvira how to walk on stilts, only to slip and then fall into Eloy's arms. after which she kisses him. And then he begins to see this rainbow aura just glowing all around her. Yeah, that's right. I also forgot to mention regarding the stilts that Eloy's life was pretty ordinary before he met Elvira. It's actually pretty sad because his life was him just working as a mascot for some fast food company where he dresses up as a wrap. Um, and he's often referred to as hot and spicy. So kind of like one of those panza wraps where it's just like this deep fried tortilla of sorts with like meat cooked on the inside. That's what he dresses up as for work. Yeah, boy, what a very, very sad life he lived before he met Elvira. So meeting her and then being able to be kissed by her for no reason at all, other than to just open him up to the mysteries of woman's magic by way of seeing Elvira turn into this being of rainbow light all around her. That's quite an extraordinary scene to capture on film. And then there are the ongoing talks about bioelectricity and Eloy connecting their different sex positions with trigonometry. Yeah. But most importantly was Eloy's clairvoyant abilities and being able to astral project himself into different locations. This is very, very crucial when it comes down to emotional and sexual development. It's really fun. There's a really funny scene in this film too where he's imagining himself in a classroom and he's talking about like electricity and magnetic poles and he has his hand on the globe and he's stuttering a lot and struggling to maintain his speech coherently to the point where he ends up tripping on the globe and slipping while at the same time he orgasms for he comes for Elvira. It's really really funny to watch. So you can see now how both of these movies show two different sides of woman. As Above, So Below shows a Lilith-like woman in Scarlett, but Don't Look Down um, shows her as more of like this, I guess, Mary Magdalene sort of character. You know, a healer that is in service of a man who is trying to discover his sexual potency. But let's get back to As Above, So Below, to um elaborate on the Lilith personification in Scarlet. She is someone who appears to use her ex-boyfriend to be her interpreter when going down into the catacombs. And then when the cops almost catch him entering into the passageway inside the tunnel, one of the people who's on the team with them, Papillion, throws a smoke bomb to draw them away, and now George is forced to follow along with them. But Scarlett is happy to have him there and shows deep compassion for him, knowing that as long as they're together, she'll keep him safe, which becomes all the more obvious later When George, and the others end up in the chamber with the Templar Knight corpse, the treasure and the burning torches that the Philosopher's Stone is keeping on burning, she comes across an Egyptian hieroglyph painting depicting the birth and death of the sun. And it's where she appears to find the Flamel Stone, taking on the appearance of the sun in the form of some massive jewel. The stone is discovered in the context of an Egyptian myth, which Scarlett reads off from the painting depicting the earth and the sky goddess being in love and the sun being so jealous that he pushed the two apart, which meant that they could only touch by the tips of their hands and feet. However, since the sky goddess gave birth to the sun, and she also swallowed him back up again as well. What Scarlett is talking about here is the myth of Newt, and she's also seen in this painting depicting both a star-studded nude woman and as a cow, who I think implies the zodiac sign Taurus, and I happen to be a Taurus, so this myth does in fact resonate with me. Yeah. To tie this myth back to the movie, though, I think that this myth reflects the state of George and Scarlett's relationship as something sinister. Now, if you follow along with my alchemical interpretation here, it will make sense to you. Going back to that line quoted earlier in the film, brightest light in darkest day, the relationship between Scarlett and George is seen here as a couple who wants to possess the solar light of creativity, which has the potential to bring wealth. The sun does symbolize wealth, except that the physical stone is not the ultimate absolute item to embody that wealth. And even though this isn't included in the story, it is of worthy note here to include information from page 57, 58 of Arlene Landau's book, Tragic Beauty, because the information from the alchemical treatise of the Rosarium Philosophorum, play a part here. So Scarlett and George are basically modeled after figure 2 right here, as you can see. Um, just to give a little bit more context, figure 1 here embodies, symbolizes the mercurial fountain. If you just look right there. So, um, yeah. So, anyways, with figure 2 modeled here, th this picture basically is the um I'm sorry here. So Scarlett and George are modeled after figure 2. Like I said, this picture right here. As the contact with the left hands here, and the painting of the sky, which is Nuit, the sky goddess, and the earth god. His name is Geb, by the way, Geb. Um, and so there is a perverse fascination that Scarlett has to possessing the stone, thinking that it's what George wants as well. So to quote from here, convention still separates them and hides their natural reality, just like Geb and Newt in that Egyptian creation story, or that Egyptian love story, So, but the crucial contact of the left hands, again, the left hands here, points to something sinister, illegitimate, morganatic, emotional, and instinctive, i.e., the fatal touch of incest. I don't think Scarlett and George had an incestuous thing going on with each other, but just I'm just reading from the text here. And it's perverse fascination. When romantic relationships begin, it is the left-handed aspect of the relationship that activates the archetype of love, or like the left-hand path would be another way of saying it. It is what we call chemistry. So to come back to this perverse fascination that Scarlett has to possessing the stone is that she is now projecting onto George the idea that this is what he wants as well. And it's not clear whether Nuit and Geb are touching with only their left hands here, implying, again, the left hand path. But the image is powerful when, after Scarlett removes the stone, disaster strikes. Later, when her and George move through the alleged ninth level of hell and encounter Satan sitting facing the Plato-like wall, demonic gargoyles in the stone walls start leaping out, and one of them bites George in the neck very aggressively. Scarlett and Zed, the only other living person down there at this point, smash the gargoyle to pieces, but it's too late. And George is bleeding to death and lying dead in exhaustion. Suddenly, George, in a delirious state, manages to say the word vitriol to Scarlett. Now, I'm not going to attempt to say the original Latin wording for the acronym of vitriol, which is Vitriol, to give you the precise spelling. But the English translation for vitriol is visit the interior of the earth, and by rectifying what you find there, you will discover the hidden stone, the philosopher's stone. Now, chemically speaking, vitriol is a form of sulfuric acid, which I think ties back to the scene early on in the church when Scarlett mixes those cleaning chemicals together to reveal a hidden text on that stone tablet. In fact, I have an article here that I wanted to quote from on adeptinitiates.com. I'll put the link in underneath this video. It is a combination of iron and sulfuric acid. In chemistry, vitriol can be used as a powerful disinfectant, what Scarlett uses with the cleaning chemicals, for example. And further distillation will yield a yellow colored, its color in natural state is green, oil called the oil of vitriol. The powerful acid can dissolve human tissue, and it's corrosive to all metals except gold. The sulfuric acid in vitriol is a powerful medium of transfiguration in alchemical experiments. So we can gather that philosophically, it is the agent of transformation, not only in alchemical experiments, but in a spiritual sense. It breaks down each metallic principle, extracts the essence, dissolves within them, and produces from the mixture the stone Petra. So you can see like some planetary metals come into this as well. Not the literal metals, but just the poetic expression of those metals is found within the human body. Yeah. But now, going back to the movie, vitriol is being quoted as a literal instruction to Scarlett to put back the stone that she took from the treasure room. Remember, rectifying what you find there, you will discover the hidden stone. And now, by rectifying herself, Scarlett also discovers after putting the stone back that there is a mirror there. And it's there when she sees her reflection that she just has this sudden awakening, and it's like there's this invisible light. You kind of notice that there's kind of like this glow that seems to be disconnected from that of the light from the torches in the room. But when it illuminates her face in the mirror, it's then that she realizes that she is the hidden stone. Now, given my studies in the new Hermetics, the human body is its own stone, seen as how it contains the four elements with which the fifth element, spirit, binds them all together. Oh yeah, and also by doing this, she once again encounters the apparition of her father and apologizes for not being there, during the time when he was in need of help, which ultimately led to his suicide. So by rectifying that situation, the ghost of her father disappears, and they've made peace with each other. Scarlett realizes that she is definitely her own healer through her reflection and ends up coming back to where George lies and lays her hands on him. His neck wound heals instantly, and this brings a renewal of that chemistry which sees a deeper devotion of love for each other. Their relationship is healed, and you can see it in their eyes when they're looking deeply into each other's eyes and realizing, I'm so glad that we have each other, and I know we're going to make it out of here alive, which which they do, which they do through that manhole, down through the bottom and out through the other side again to a new reality, a reality that's steeped in truth, a more profound truth. And as I said about Elvira, she is more of the Mary Magdalene type in that, she kind of plays more of like the sacred prostitute role. Um, though I would also vouch for Lilith in this case as well, albeit a more positive manifestation in which her sexual powers, just the uncontained passion, the creative fire that is associated with Lilith, that chaos is used in a more in the service of giving, rather than controlling, where she passes her wisdom, wisdom of her mysteries, the forbidden knowledge and mysteries of sexual energy, which becomes a source of healing and empowerment for Eloy. With that being said, their relationship and work together lasts for a limited time, and then she ends up going away. Now, from what I remember, Elvira also works as a textile artist, or she makes clothes, I believe. She is a bit of a gypsy that travels from place to place, though. Sometimes Barcelona, and sometimes, wherever. Barcelona, I know, was mentioned as one of the places where she stays at, though. But anyways, the to wrap things up with that movie is that Eloy is then left with the lessons per spoken by the ghost of his father, who reappears again in his life briefly at the end in a cafe, that he will always be spending the rest of his life saying goodbye. Yeah. But that shouldn't stop him from believing in love, and pursuing an ideal partner, as twin flame. The thing is that Eloy obviously felt empty after Elvira left. He didn't know how to go on and, um, start a new life different from the otherwise boring and routine existence that he had as being a fast food mascot. But obviously, the it ends on a happy note, but also an ambiguous note, knowing that, of course, he has to go on and find himself that twin flame who is going to be um, the one that will take the lessons Elvira passed on to him to the next level. I guess that's really the best way that I can say to end that review on that movie. So, anyways, that's my review. And I definitely want you to see these movies back to back. Um, Obviously, As Above, So Below is one that's very easy to find. Don't Look Down is also pretty easy to find, but you will not be able to play it on a Region 1 player. You would have to play it on a Region 3 player because the DVD was manufactured in Argentina, I believe. But I know because of the formatting, it's one of those films that you can't watch on an American DVD Blu-ray player. But definitely get your hands on a copy of that film. Pretty sure you can even find it on Amazon too. I believe that's what I did. But yeah, so um yeah, with all that being said, hope you enjoyed this double movie feature review. And as always, um shout out to my supporters here at Mega Media Exchange in Brookfield. As always, wonderful deals on CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, video game stuff. Shout out to the Marcus Majestic Theater as well, out in Brookfield, Waukesha area. And yeah, of course, as always, check out the link below with regards to Easter, especially after you watch Don't Look Down. You're going to see that the things that you will learn about in that film are very, very much the sort of stuff that I would be learning in real life at this school in Arizona. And I definitely want to get out there. So whatever money I can make off my content to get me out there would be much appreciated. So thanks again, and I will see you once more on the flip side of the reel, and ciao.